Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Welcome to the Catholic Mama, where you'll learn how to deepen and defend your faith, find comfort as we share the vocation of parenthood, and learn how to raise your children confidently Catholic. I'm your host, Christine Mooney-Flynn. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome back to The Catholic Mama. I'm your host, Christine Mooney-Flynn, and thank you so much for joining me on this special episode where I have a guest that's not my husband, which is usually the guest that I've been having lately, because he just forces himself onto the podcast. But today it's even better because it's Bonnie Engstrom of A Knotted Life. She is a wife and mother, Catholic. Actually, and I say mother, I'm going to be quiet in just a second and let Bonnie actually introduce herself. But Bonnie, you have a lot of kids, don't you?
I do.
So I'm going to let you talk about that because I only have 3. So I love that. I love hearing other moms tell me how many they have.
Okay.
It just makes me feel a little bit more at ease with having more than 3 eventually someday, maybe. All right. But you're a writer. She's a writer, speaker, homemaker, just all around wonderful woman and Catholic. Thank you for joining me, Bonnie.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me on. It's really exciting to be here. So
if you wouldn't mind, maybe introducing yourself in a little bit more depth than what I just did.
Sure. Yeah. So I have been married for 12 years to my husband, Travis, and we live in central Illinois in the Peoria area, which is where we're both from. He's a teacher, a high school physics teacher, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. And we have 7 kids. We lost our first child to miscarriage. So if you include that baby, then that's 8. And then I'm also pregnant right now. So that takes the sum total to 9 pregnancies. So like most OBGYNs think I'm crazy, but yeah. So right now we have 7 kids and my oldest is 10 and my youngest is 19 months.
Wow. How far along are you in this pregnancy now?
I don't know.
I'm gonna really quiz you and tell you all your kids. Ask you to tell me your kids' birthdays and see if you can do that because I certainly can't.
I can tell you their birthdays, but not how much they all weighed.
Oh,
yeah. I think I'm 25 weeks.
Okay, so over halfway.
Yes, yeah, over halfway. So,
is it a surprise? Do you know if a boy or girl, or you just do surprises?
No. We do surprises.
That's fun. I never did with the 3. I always wanted to know, but I was never Catholic when I was pregnant before. So I figured if I get pregnant again, I will just trust in God, and I can I don't need to plan too much.
Oh, that's funny.
That's
because most Catholics I know find out too. Oh. So it doesn't, just because you're Catholic doesn't mean you stop being super curious, you know?
Oh yeah, I know. Well, it's not even just curious. It's just me trying to control things.
Oh, I see.
Just the right amount of clothes and we'll have the nursery look this way. I mean, that's funny. That's funny. I mean, saying nursery, because if there's more, the nursery is like looking really cute and pretty don't really happen after the first one.
Right. Exactly. There's just a crib stuck somewhere where it will fit. Yeah.
All right, so I'm sorry. Go ahead. You have lots of kids. You've got another on the way. Please.
Yes. No. That's fine. So we do a mix of parochial and public schooling, and just kind of depending on the needs of our kids. And I guess related to that, I have a couple of my kids have special needs. Nothing too serious, but we're familiar with IEPs and food allergies and speech therapists, and I don't know. I like to bake a lot. I have cinnamon rolls rising as we speak.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like when it's nice outside, which is not right now. I really like to work in my garden and just kind of putz about my yard. And I guess that's about it. So, yeah.
That sounds like a very nice life.
Thanks. It is.
And I like that you have cinnamon rolls. That sounds really nice.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes.
I had big plans.
Yeah, it's not for them, but.
Oh, it isn't?
No. I'm giving them away. Oh. I'd be so mad, but.
Oh, Okay. Well, that's cruel, but
I should probably say that I am also like a writer. I write for Blessed is She. I'm one of the devotion writers. And I'm pretty active there. I do stuff on their Instagram too, because I love that ministry. I love being a part of that ministry. I've been blogging for a really long time. Like I'm an old school blogger, and I'm very active on Instagram, and I speak. I travel around the nation as a speaker as well. And I love that. So sometimes I'm really bad at like the promoting part. And so I should probably say that though.
Yeah, well, we can talk more about that, and I will make sure that whatever you don't say or don't say enough, I'll put in the show notes.
Okay, thank you.
I will help promote you. But this happened to me yesterday. I went to Mass with my mother-in-law to a church that I've never been to before, and I had the kids with me. They were all pretty well behaved, as best as they can handle. And a woman stopped me afterwards, and she's pregnant, and she has like a very young baby. So it's going to be spaced very closely together. And she's like, "Oh, what advice do you have?" And I just blurted out a couple things. I wasn't even thinking. I just did a podcast episode last week about how to have your kids behave in church. And she walked away. And about 10 minutes later, I was like, "Oh my God, I do this. This is what I do." Wow. That's the second time this week that I've not promoted my work like I should have. So
yeah. It's hard to, but
yeah, I'm just so you just have conversations. You don't think about, I don't know.
Yes.
But speaking of, because I would like to talk about the reasons why, what you talk about as you talk around the country and what you're writing about. So I had Katie Wagner on from Look to Him and Be Radiant is her website. And I started following her on Instagram. And of course, once you start following one or two people, then you just start following all these wonderful Catholic women who are living their faith. And I didn't even realize that as I said before we hit record, that you guys are connected. But she just happened to mention, she's like, "Oh yes, about this Fulton Sheen Miracle." And I think, was she in the hospital that night with you?
It was a home birth.
Home birth, that's it. Okay.
She was at home. Yeah, she was at home.
And then she mentioned your name. I was like, "What? Oh my God, yes!" Like I didn't, and then not life. I just did not put all this together. So in case there is listeners who are not able to put things together, like I couldn't, can you explain? Or I would love to talk about this connection with Fulton Sheen.
Sure. Yes, I would love to. So, okay, please feel free to interrupt and ask me questions along the way, because I could talk. I mean, literally, I can 60-minute talk about this.
You got 20.
I'm gonna give a much shorter, more conversational discussion about it. But so my third born child, his name is James Fulton, and he was my third planned home birth. And everything was healthy and normal and beautiful. And I went into labor, and everything was, we had monitoring of all sorts. And I mean, just everything was perfect, right? But what we didn't know is that there was a knot in James's umbilical cord. And so while he descended the birth canal, that knot tightened, and it tightened so much that it cut off his entire oxygen supply, so that when he was born, he was a stillborn. Essentially, he was a 0 on the APGAR. He wasn't breathing. He was blue and lifeless. And so our midwife and her assistant, they immediately started doing everything that they could do to resuscitate James. And my husband took some water, and that I, just my cup of water I'd been drinking through labor. And he did an emergency baptism on James, and a 911 was called, and paramedics came and took James from our home. We live it could have been like a 15-minute drive or less if they would have really hustled. But the ambulance took about 20 minutes, and I don't know why.
Oh.
But
I'm so glad this has a happy ending, because this would be, I don't know if you would get furious as you think of back on this. Or...
Yeah. My husband rode with James, and he was like, they weren't going, like they were going the speed limit.
Oh my God.
And so So I don't know if they were just kind of like, this baby is dead. Like, well, we're going to follow through with the motions of everything. But and he was hooked up to a heart monitor, and on the heart monitor, he had no heartbeat. He just had, like, if you picture a heartbeat, there's like the big jagged kind of up and down jumps and then the little squiggles. So he just had little squiggles, and those are electrical impulses that are needed by the heart to like kickstart the heartbeat. But you can legally be declared dead if you just have those electrical impulses. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So it's called pulseless electrical activity, or PEA. Okay. So he was PEA on the monitor the entire ride in the ambulance. And I hope that didn't sound disrespectful to the paramedics. Like, I really know that they were, we don't know what they were doing, and we just trust that they were doing their best. So shouldn't like assume anything, because they were really wonderful. But so he got to the emergency room, and he continued to be PEA on the monitor. And the whole time in the ambulance and in the emergency room, they were giving James epinephrine and other things. They were doing whatever they could to restart his heart, and nothing worked. And so, it was the middle of the night. There was a neonatologist who was on call, and she was driving in and on the phone with them. And she just told them, okay, try for 5 more minutes. And if nothing happens, then just call time of death. And really, those 5 more minutes were not because they felt like, James would come back to life and everything would be okay. Those 5 more minutes were so when the doctors went out into the hall and spoke to my husband, they could say, I'm sorry, Mr. Engstrom, we did everything that we could.
Sure.
And so they did. They tried for 5 more minutes and nothing happened. And, the window of time when any of the drugs would have worked, that all of those closed. And so everyone stopped working on James so they could call time of death. And so all hands were off. And as soon as that happened, his heart started to beat again. And it just jumped up to 147 beats per minute. And it never stopped again. And all together, from the time at home, like from the time he was born through the ambulance ride and through the time in the emergency room, he had gone 61 minutes without a heartbeat.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and during that hour, there were a couple of instances where, so we knew that we were going to name James after Fulton Sheen and in honor of Fulton Sheen. And so, like during that hour, there was this moment where I was just going into shock. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know what to think. I had just given birth to a baby in the middle of the night and he was dead. You know what I mean? And so, I remember sitting on my bedroom floor and saying Fulton Sheen's name over and over and over again. Like that was the closest thing to a prayer that I could muster, was to call on Fulton Sheen to kind of carry us through that moment and have him be the one who would pray to God for us, because do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and after James came back to life, we just continued with that. We asked people all around. I had people all around the world, people who followed my blog and things like that. And we asked them to all pray for a miracle through the intercession of Fulton Sheen. And, James was supposed to have massive organ failure from going without oxygen for an hour.
Sure.
And so he was supposed to die again. And that didn't happen. And then we were told, okay, well, he's going to be very severely disabled. And they just kind of listed off all of these things that would be wrong with him and things he would never be able to do and ways that he would be disabled or special needs he would have. And, that was like heartbreaking, to have it felt like we got our son, we had the son, he was taken away, and then God gave him back to us. And then it just felt like bit by bit, they were taking our son away from us again.
Mm-hmm.
but we just continued to pray for a miracle, a complete healing. And, over time, God showed that that's what he had done, that he had healed our son. So, James is now 8 years old and he's in second grade. He just had his first confession.
That's exciting.
Communion. Yeah. So,
and none of those things occurred, the scary things they said?
No, I mean, they basically warned us that he would be in a wheelchair, that he would, his body, he would have cerebral palsy very severely. His body would be locked into really contorted positions, that he would need a feeding tube. He would wear diapers. He would be blind.
Oh my.
Mentally he would just be he'd basically be vacant. And, the kid roller skates, he eats chicken nuggets.
He goes to the dentist. No.
He goes to the dentist. Yeah. Yeah.
I say this to anybody who's listening because another child of yours popped in just a minute ago, which is very cute. And talked about James a little bit. I heard that.
Just normal life.
That's amazing.
And part of normal life, James has food allergies and he has a speech issue, but so do my other kids.
Yeah, right. So it's not, you can't say that it was this, which even if it was, that is so minor compared. Right. That's incredible. So what, in the time afterwards about praying for the intercession of Fulton Sheen, Fulton Sheen is venerated, right? But not a saint. So I don't know how many, do you have to have two confirmed miracles to become a saint after? I can't remember what the process is.
So when this happened, Fulton Sheen he was just servant of God. And but they still did, the church and the Sheen Foundation did a tribunal to investigate this alleged miracle of our son. And so, they interviewed all these witnesses. They looked through all the medical records. They shipped everything to Rome. In Rome, there was more medical experts who reviewed everything. And kind of while all of that was happening, the Congregation for the Causes of Saints was studying Fulton Sheen's life, and they decided that, he had lived a life of heroic virtue and declared Fulton Sheen venerable. And so as soon as Fulton Sheen was declared venerable, the Sheen Foundation submitted James's alleged miracle as the first miracle needed for Fulton Sheen's beatification. So really, and that sounded a little misleading, but you just need one miracle for beatification and one miracle for canonization. So
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So if this alleged miracle is approved by the Congregation for the Causes of Saints and then is approved by the Pope, then Fulton Sheen will be beatified. And then they'll need another miracle that will also be investigated. And then that will need to be approved for Fulton Sheen to be canonized.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where is the everything happened with your son? Is that approved, or where is that in the process?
Sure. So that is such a fun question to answer. Okay. Because it's actually not. But so it is because there's actually, before the miracle is, or the alleged miracle is looked at by the Congregation for the Causes of Saints, they have a panel of medical advisors, medical experts who advise them, and they have a panel of theologians. And so both the medical advisors and the theologians unanimously approved the miracle as a true miracle.
Okay.
So those are both two really important steps towards getting a miracle approved by the church. Because if they would have said, if they would have said no, it just would have ended there. Right.
Sure.
And the fact that it was unanimous is extra, fun, I guess. But, and so then it would have gone on to the cardinals who actually make up the Congregation for the Causes of Saints, mm-hmm. should have then progressed to them. but in between, the cause was paused because of the dispute about Fulton Sheen's body between the Archdiocese of New York and the Diocese of Peoria.
Oh, I think I've briefly heard about this, but I don't know if you want to. Can you explain this a little bit?
Yes. So Fulton Sheen has a niece named Joan Sheen Cunningham. And when she was 10 years old, she moved from Illinois to New York City to live with her uncle. And then he raised her from the time she was 10. So that's important to know because Joan Cunningham is still alive and she is considered Fulton Sheen's next of kin, right? The closest thing he had as a daughter the closest thing he had to a daughter for, a priest who didn't.
Sure, yeah.
So when her and other people wanted to open his cause for canonization, they approached the Archdiocese of New York. The Archdiocese of New York said, we can't do it. We have Dorothy Day and other things going on. You should go to Peoria. So they came to Peoria because Fulton Sheen was born and raised in Peoria. He was ordained a priest of Peoria. A lot of his family still lives in Peoria.
And then which is where the connection or the excuse me, the feelings of connection that say you have because you're local, correct?
Yes. Okay. We are really close to Peoria. We're part of the diocese. So, so Joan and the other people came to the bishop of the Diocese of Peoria, Bishop Jenke, and he said, I am definitely interested. And he talked to the cardinal in New York and said, we're going to need Fulton Sheen's body moved to Peoria to kind of fulfill the canonical norms. Will you give us the body at the right time? And that cardinal, who has since passed away, said yes. But they never wrote letters. It was all gentleman's agreement, phone calls, things like that, right?
Okay.
So fast forward to we got to the point in the canonization process where for the canonical norms to be followed in the proper way, because there's tens of thousands of causes for saints open all over the world. So there has to be canonical norms that everyone follows, right? It just makes sense. So for the canonical norms to be followed, the Sheen Foundation and the Diocese of Peoria needed to have Fulton Sheen's body in Peoria. And then they wanted to, distribute relics, build a shrine, things like that.
Yeah.
And basically there was disagreement about how that would happen. And in the end, the Vatican said, you guys need to figure this out. And when you figure it out, we will pick up the cause again. And so the latest is that Mrs. Cunningham, Fulton Sheen's niece, ended up suing the Archdiocese of New York and the trustees of St. Patrick's Cathedral, which is where Bishop Sheen is buried, so that she could have possession of the body to move Fulton Sheen to Peoria.
And how long ago did that happen?
Oh,
too long?
It's been a couple of years. Because,
wow.
So she won, and then New York appealed, and then she won again, and then New York appealed again.
Oh my goodness.
They just heard, the appellate courts just heard the oral arguments for the second appeal. But I think that I mean, that happened in mid-January of 2019.
Oh, so it's recent.
Yeah, it was very recent.
Okay.
But I think they have something like 5 or 6 months after they hear the oral arguments for them to write their decision and make their ruling. So
we got a while. A little bit longer.
We've got a while. But I don't think the Archdiocese can appeal anymore. So I think that if they rule in Mrs. Cunningham's favor, then Fulton Sheen will come to Peoria and the cause will be able to reopen.
Well, I mean, it's been 8 years since your son was born, so this is quite a while. But now looking, at least sitting where we are now, thinking that maybe it's not too much longer is wonderful.
Yes. And I have to be patient because some saints aren't canonized for hundreds of years.
Right.
So, God is in control and all of this is for his glory, right? So if there's anything that is upsetting, or, I'll just stick with upsetting. If there's anything upsetting, then we just have to trust that God can make all things new, so.
Right. And then hopefully one day you'll be able to nix the word alleged at the beginning. And
yeah, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, one day soon. It feels very clunky to say that, but
yes,
I know. Yeah,
out of respect for the church, we definitely want to say that.
Sure.
But like for the people who know James, I mean, it is obvious it's a miracle. He was dead for an hour. No one is dead for an hour. And roller skates, you know what I mean? They don't live to be 8.
Yeah.
And sing along to the radio. And you know what I mean? Like, so
I'm guessing that you and your family are actually, you have the 7, and then you're pregnant with 8. Where does James fall in the lineup?
So he's number 3.
Number 3. Okay. So, and I'm guessing it sounds like if you're going to name him Fulton anyway, that you and your husband are both very Catholic.
Yes.
Okay. Were you always?
I was, yes.
Okay.
You probably would have like rolled your eyes at me like, oh my goodness, Bonnie, we understand you're Catholic. But God gave me the gift of faith, and my Catholic faith has always meant a lot to me. And God has always meant a lot to me, even when I didn't really know how to have a personal relationship with Jesus. It was still something that I sought. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and my husband was baptized Catholic, but raised and confirmed Lutheran. And then he basically, like, he considers himself a revert. So he reverted back to the Catholic faith when he was in college.
Okay. Did you guys meet around that time? Or was it after that he had converted that you guys had met?
I met him afterwards.
Oh, okay.
So I worked at a Newman Center, like a Catholic student center at a public university shortly, like right after I graduated from college. I was hired there, and he was a super duper senior. And so we're the same age, but I was his campus minister.
That's great. And then, man, I'm always floored by my grandmother, was very, very Catholic, had 10 kids. But I don't know, they all came of age at a time where maybe the catechesis wasn't great, and that all 10 kids have left the church. So I was raised thinking that all of this was just kind of bogus. Right. So I did not have the same experience of faith, and it took a long time to come back. I mean, a really long time to come back to that, especially hearing, my dad or whoever or aunts or uncles who had, grown up in all this stuff, and they had come to the conclusion that it wasn't worthwhile.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff to come back or, to cut away to get to the truth of the matter. I think it's always so fascinating to me. And I think it's wonderful to hear of Catholics who have just had that fire burning for a long time.
Yeah, but it's also, for cradle Catholics, it's so awesome to hear conversion stories. Like, that's so cool that you had this. First of all, to think your grandma probably prayed and prayed and prayed to get you to where you are. And she had no idea, right? Like, yeah, she just probably trusted in the Lord and Mother Mary and didn't know, anyways, I'm assuming, but I am sure that woman spent so much time praying and had no idea that the fruit of that would be your life lived now, Yeah,
that's true. And I got to be honest. There's 10 of those kids, and I think all but maybe one of them had more than one child. So I have like 50 cousins, and I don't think there's any. I don't know if there's any practicing Catholics except for me and all of that. So she got the one.
She got the one. But praise God for that, So,
and then I get to talk to you and hear this wonderful story. I would think that everything changed, but James is your third. You were very faithful leading up to this. What changed though after all of this in your family life or your personal, interiorly?
Oh man, I think that for me, it wasn't, I think, first of all, I operated in a state of shock for a long time because I just had to keep the plates spinning.
Sure.
I had 2 kids at home. I had this child who for a while was, considered medically frail. And then just because of the trauma he went through, he had all these special therapists and doctor's appointments. And I mean, it was crazy. And so I think I just was plowing ahead and in a lot of ways, just relying on the prayers of others. And I didn't even know it at the time,
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing that has changed for us is I always think about, or when I get to the parts in scripture where God is described either by a psalmist or by, Moses or whoever, and they'll talk about, this is the God who did this. This is the God who led you out of Egypt. This is the God who parted the Red Sea. This is the God who, helped you to conquer whoever, the Philistines or whatever, as they kind of have this litany of the faithfulness and the might of God before everything happened with James. I always saw those things as, stuff that happened to the Jews like thousands of years ago, or to people in biblical times. This is the God who became flesh and cured the lame and drove out demons. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But now, I am able to look at my life and say, this is the God who brought my son back from the dead. This is the God who has used those circumstances to inspire countless other people to believe and to hope and to trust when they otherwise would have despaired. This is the God who has given me a husband who these hardships have only strengthened our marriage and unified us even more instead of tearing us apart. It just gave me the perspective to see that everything that God has done in my life has been there's a plan, and that he is still mighty to save. He is still faithful. I think that's maybe been the most beautiful part for me.
That is very powerful. I mean, actually understanding that this is the living God, not somebody from the past.
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So personal. Yeah. Yes. And so personal and so intimate, the way that he has moved in our life.
Well, that's really beautiful. I can't think of anything else that I would want to say that would not, because I think it would just ruin everything that you just said. And that's, we'll just cut here now. This is so great. I'm so happy because, I read, I went to A Knotted Life, your website, and I read this story, but to hear you say it, I can see why people want you to come and talk about this in person because, of course you write wonderfully. And I think I cried when I was reading that story, but to hear you say it is just even more powerful. So thank you very much for coming on the show and sharing this with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And one last thing, because I think I started following you because I haven't been on Instagram for too long. I used to be on Instagram years ago and I would take pictures of clouds and wine and that was it. So I came back. I came back less than a year ago. I think when I started following you, you had that Harry Potter party.
Oh yeah.
And so I devoured that. That was awesome. What? So I got to ask, what Harry Potter house are you in? Do you think?
I'm a Hufflepuff.
I was going to guess that after you said the baking. I just had a feeling. It just sounded very huffily.
Yeah. Yeah. Travis is he's a Gryffindor.
Okay.
And several of my kids are Gryffindors, but James is also a Hufflepuff. And we have one potential Ravenclaw, but we kind of have to wait a little bit further.
Okay. Yeah, they're a little too young to figure that out.
Yeah, exactly.
My husband is convinced. I think he's Slytherin, but he tells me that he's Gryffindor. I'd rather it not be Slytherin.
Yeah.
But I'm Ravenclaw. At least that's where I got pegged. And I don't know. I guess that's close. I like them all. Well,
yeah.
The three anyway. They all have their purpose, I suppose.
Right.
Well, thank you, Bonnie, so very much for coming on. And I know I wanted to talk a little bit about liturgical living, but and homemaking and all this stuff. Maybe we'll do that another time.
Yeah, I would love to be back on.
All right, well, thank you so much. And anybody listening, I will put all of Bonnie's info and website and anything else that I can dig up, including Instagram, all that, in the show notes that you can find Bonnie. Although I have a feeling that you probably already do follow her, but just in case, I'll put that there. And well, anyway, thank you guys so much for listening in. Make sure that you don't miss these episodes. You can subscribe. New episodes come out on Tuesdays, and then I do Catechism Fridays on Fridays. Those 10-minute mini episodes. Dive deep into the Catholic Catechism. Look at that. So such an easy name. Catechism Fridays. It's a catechism on Fridays. Very, very unique of me to pick that, right? All right. Well, thank you so much. And until next time, everyone.
Don't forget to head over to thecatholicmama.com to get your free copy of How to Talk to Your Kids About God. This handy little ebook will teach you how to broach the topic of God with your children, or how to respond to your kids when they want to talk about God, as well as give you answers to 7 of the trickiest questions about the faith that Christian parents face. You'll love the easy to understand grown-up answers, the pared down but not talked down answers you can share with your kids, plus recommended resources if you'd like to deepen your understanding of the topic. Get yours free at thecatholicmama.com.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.